Come on in, guys! Come on in, guys! Come on in, guys!
Survivor 45, it is finale time, and we are kicking it right off after Drew was voted out last week, and we are down to 5. So in these last several episodes of the end of the season here, the big focus has really been Dee and Austin's relationship that has developed into more than an alliance in the game. It's more an actual relationship, at least at that current time in the game. It is developing beyond just the game. Although it is developing beyond the game, it is still inside the game, which means it has an effect on the game and who and what decisions and who they're going to bring and whatnot to the end. It all influences their decisions. So it is a major talking point, especially early on in the episode, and that is something that is quite noticeable. Once you get down to 5, it's hard to hide that anymore. So before we even get to a challenge, they're all on a new beach. They're on a new camp because they sent them off. They always do this now. They send them off to a new camp right at the end with final 5. And so they're at a new camp, and in the morning when they're sitting on the beach, they all notice that there's this box sitting on the beach, and it's this combo puzzle. And they all have these hidden boxes around, not hidden, but they have all these boxes on different ends of the island or the beach, and they have to run to them, count the items in each box, run back, and then enter the combo. And hopefully the combination is correct. You have to count them correctly. So if you count each one, it'll unlock the thing, and you'll get an advantage for the actual challenge. And if you get it wrong, you actually have to go back to every single box and count them again before you can go back and try again. So multiple people go back and forth and try it. They get it wrong, and the only person that went back to each box and did it once but was very slow, he even mentioned that he's not a very good runner and it's not his strong suit in the game, is Jake. And Jake used that to his advantage, and he made sure that he was going to count all the items that he's looking at very, very closely. And Jake did ultimately end up getting the advantage. He got the advantage for the challenge, and he's going into the first challenge of this finale here with an advantage. So that's good for him, because he's kind of been on the bottom this whole season. So although Jake did have an advantage going into that first challenge here of the finale, he did stumble and he missed the grab his key at a certain point in the challenge, and he did mess up in the challenge, and then he messed up again in the challenge at the end when there was a puzzle and he missed a piece. He completely left a piece on the side. He missed that opportunity, and Austin ended up winning immunity again. So Austin and Dee are winning quite a few immunities in this game, and it's pretty clear and obvious. So Austin does make it to the final 4, and Jake did not win. So I did take him on a reward, though. It was a reward and a immunity. So Jake and Austin did go on the last reward to the sanctuary. So going into this final vote, the final vote before the fire challenge at the end here, this is the final vote to vote somebody out in Survivor 45, and Jake has an idol. He has been holding on to an idol, and he has an idol, and he's essentially safe tonight. He literally tells Austin at the reward that, yeah, I have an idol. He goes around to try and tell basically everybody, yeah, I got an idol. I'm going to play my idol, and I'm safe. So who are we going to vote out? So it's basically coming down to the 3 girls, Dee, Katurah, or Julie. And although it ended up okay for Jake ended up doing something that was incredibly silly. And I think it was just another misstep. He's had a lot of missteps. Jake is a weird player because he has his moments. He has his moments where you want to really root for him, but he's literally stumbling at everything. He just can't catch a break. He's just messing up a lot. So he thinks he's got an ally with Katurah, and he thinks, okay, I have this idol. I don't think people are going to vote for me because everyone now knows I have my idol. I've seen this has happened too many times now, and it's annoying. I'm actually getting really annoyed watching people play their idols for other people and then it not working out. He plays his idol for Katurah, and it doesn't really mean much. Katurah wasn't even the one going home, and Jake, I think he got a vote, but he also didn't go home, so he was safe. He's fine, but it's don't do that. Just play it for yourself. So I did like what Austin did last week. He played his idol for himself. He wasn't going to go home, but sometimes, I just like to see some people just play their idol for themselves. It's your idol. Play it. So he did play it for Katurah. Ultimately, it didn't really do him any good. Julie did go home. and Julie is the final one out. Final one voted out. So now we're down to 4. So Katurah, Austin, Dee, and Jake are left. And right after that tribal council, there is actually a little bit of an argument between Jake and Katurah, because Katurah ended up flipping and voting out Julie when Jake and her had initially agreed on voting Dee. And Katurah really wanted Dee out, but for some reason she flipped and decided to vote Julie. And it did come back to bite her in the end, because she really did want Julie out, and for some reason she said she didn't trust Jake enough and she voted for Julie instead. Well, that didn't turn out good for her. Going into the actual final challenge of the entire season, it's not actually the ball challenge this time, where they put the ball into the little thing and it spins around. They continue to add more, and they have like one hand behind their back. It's a completely different challenge this time, which I was kind of surprised to see. They usually do the ball one, so a little different this time. They have to basically walk in between like this thing, and you can't hit the wire, or else the entire platform that they're on is going to wobble and knock down their stack of bowls. So it's a very, very concentration focused, challenge, which is a lot of these, to be fair. But this one is where you have to stack a bunch of bowls and you win immunity, and you have to stack them all and then get to the end and you win. But the trick is that it's very, very flimsy, and you make one wrong move on the thing and you knock it just a little bit, it does fall and completely ruin your challenge. Like, you have to start over, basically. So if you slow and steady, you can do pretty good in this type of challenge. So there's one person who did really great in this challenge, and that was Dee. I don't think she stumbled once. She won immunity. But the person who was probably the most noticeable and standout player of this challenge was Jake. He basically had a meltdown at this challenge. He was tied with Dee for most of the challenge, and right at the end there, he kind of stumbled, and the entire thing broke, and he kind of had a little bit of an issue, a little bit of a breakdown, and he started to stomp all over the actual platform that was hooked up by some strings, and he broke it, and that immediately disqualified him from the challenge. So that was kind of the big thing from the challenge, but Dee did win immunity, and is the biggest one you can win. She is in the final 3, and she has the power to now choose who is going to do fire and who is going to go to the final 3 with her. You can kind of see where that's going to go already. You already know who's going to the final 3 with Dee, and that is Austin. So Austin is going to be going to the final 3, and she's going to make Jake and Katurah go for fire. But Dee and Austin have made it clear that they want Jake to win, because they think they can, have a potential chance of losing the game against Katurah. So they are rooting for Jake, and they're rooting for Jake to win fire. They kind of tease it for a moment that maybe Austin will join in, and maybe he'll do fire instead, because he's very confident that he can beat Katurah. But they did make it how we thought it would go, and she chose Austin to go into the final 3, and Jake and Katurah are going to go for fire. So initially, as they were before the fire in the last tribal even happened, they did kind of show us that Jake maybe having some struggles with the fire. He can't really build the fire that well, but I think that was just kind of like an editing thing in the actual, the season and the show itself, because he ultimately did end up getting a fire going, and Katurah didn't even get a fire started. But Jake got his fire started, he got it high enough, and he won, so he is in the final 3. But I will tell you right now, I haven't mentioned who won yet, but my choice to win the game on the final 3, Austin, Dee, and Jake. Those are the final 3. Katurah and Julie are gone. That is our final 3. Before the final jury, talking to them and everything, I thought, okay, I really think Dee is going to win this. Maybe Austin. I don't think Jake has a chance. There's a few moments there, it's like, oh, well, he's like the big underdog, and he has a few moments there, it's like, oh, maybe it'll be a surprise vote and he'll win the game. But there's always a clear 2 people that will be tied between, basically, and it ended up coming down to Austin and Dee. So at the final tribal, they mostly just talked to Dee and Austin. They had a few questions for Jake, but it was pretty clear that it was between Dee and Austin. And the winner of Survivor 45 is Dee. So Dee has won Survivor 45. And I gotta say, I'm not too upset. I'm really not. I think she played a good game, and I kind of started to see it. I think going into this final episode of Survivor with the final 5 left, I'm thinking, who's really gonna win this thing? And I didn't really know last week. Going into it, just starting out the episode tonight, I think Dee's got a good shot, and I think my prediction wasn't really early on. To be fair, I think Emily would have probably won this if she made it to the end. She was like the big player there that got voted out a few weeks ago. But Dee played a pretty good game. I just had that feeling that she was going to win, and she did win. But it did almost come to a tie between her and Austin. It did come down to Dee had one extra vote than Austin. Jake had no votes. It's usually how it goes. There's always one person who literally just has no votes, and that's just the way it is. And it kind of sucks to see that, because it's like, oh, you made it to the end. You're in the final three. And he did seem to be very happy just to be there. So I think that was cool, I suppose. But I will say this about the final three. Usually in the final three, I end up having somebody there in the final three that I really don't like, or I just haven't liked all that much. Like I always have an issue with somebody when they make it to the final three. And I'm always thinking, like, why are they there? I don't like them being there. This time around, I didn't have any issues with who was in the final three. I think it was a good final three. You had Jake, Austin, and Dee, and I had no issues with them really through the whole season. Jake, maybe a moment or two every now and then, like, he would get a little too emotional and be like, okay, whatever. That's just who he is, though, I suppose. But generally, I had no issues with the final three at all. And I think also going into the final episode here is, like, my favorite that I was mostly rooting for was Bruce, I think. So after he went, I kind of started to look at the season a little different for me personally, and I didn't really have a person I was specifically rooting for. So whoever won, I think it would have been a very satisfying ending to me, because I was not, like, devastated by someone or a favorite not winning the game. I actually kind of saw the game in a different way, and I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because it's just more my personal feelings of it. It's like my personal favorite players weren't really in the game anymore, so I kind of started to look at it a little differently, and I think it was a very satisfying ending. I think it really was. I think Dee had a good game, so did Austin, and so did Jake in some ways too. So I think it was good. I think it really was good. It was a rough start to the season for sure. So many quitters in the season. You had two people flat out quit. You had another guy who was, I remember Brandon, another guy who'd hardly ever wanted to be there anyways, and he was just a mess, and it was just awful to watch. It was miserable. I got a little heated at some points in the season for sure. The whole Bruce thing, it got a little annoying. Everyone just constantly, like, cheering and rooting against Bruce. It was strange, to me at least. Whatever, though. But after the whole Bruce thing, I gotta say the season generally overall went fine. I've seen worse seasons of Survivor. I think the last few seasons were a little more exciting for me, I think. Gabler winning was really awesome. I think Jam Jam was also definitely the good choice for 44. And I think this is a good choice for 45 as well. But this is the first time in a while I think I've seen all three people on the final three where I think any person winning would have been a good choice. I think they were all good choices to win, and Dee ended up pulling it off. And it was almost a tie. So that is Survivor 45. And the thing with the seasons now is, with these finales, they would show the next season, what they're gonna do. And it used to be kind of exciting, you know. I'm not saying that Survivor can't be exciting still, because it's normal gameplay and the way the game is normally done. You don't have to have a gimmick to be exciting, but, you know, they would always tease, like, their next thing they would do, what kind of twists and turns what they're gonna call the season. But now they just call it Survivor 46, and they just show a few new cast members, and that's really all it is. It wasn't that exciting to me. It's just a few new cast members they're showing for next season, and it'll start in February, I believe. So that is when Survivor 46 will kick off. I started covering Survivor because it kicked off really rough with 41 after the big winter season, and it's getting better. It is certainly getting better than what happened. It had a low point there, and I'm super happy that it's picking up. Now, I do think they need to be better with their casting, because the casting this season, you could tell at the beginning it was rough, and there was some people there that just I don't feel like should have been there, and there are some issues they need to address still. I hope they do that, because I think they addressed with Austin, like, there's some people that they bring on in the background, like, there are people there that are brought just in case, you know, someone can't be on the game, and immediately they need to get somebody in there, and Austin was like a second choice person who was there to be in the game. And they revealed in that last episode where he was literally told like 3 days before he was even put out there that he's going to actually be in the game. So I'm assuming somebody couldn't at the last second or last minute be in the game and they had to leave, so he was thrown in there. So there's so many people that really want to play this game, and I just think they need to look at that a little closer and just see the people who are willing to really go all out. Obviously, there's going to be a few people every now and then that you just can't tell, I suppose, but seeing like 3 quitters in this one season was rough to begin it with, and I hope they fix that. But it did end very satisfyingly to me. I think it was a good ending, and I'm looking forward to next season. I really am. But D is our winner for 45, and we'll see what happens next season.